Receiving my content. Okay, hold on a sec. Just gonna make sure this is all working. Receiving my content. Okay, hold on a sec. Just gonna make sure this is all working.
Seems to be coming up.
My content. Whoa. Well, we need to stop that. Okay. Cool. Right. Hello, Internet. Welcome back. I guess I don't need to do that intro because we already had that one. But anyway, so we're going to be doing a live stream here, and we're going to be picking back up with Emotible. We're doing a live stream because I'm going to be working with the UI, and I think that's probably going to take one or two of these, and it's probably going to take more than the 30-minute episodes I've been shooting for. The last one with the Entity Framework kind of ran a little bit long. Well, it ran a lot long, but that's just because I didn't read the manual and didn't know what I was doing. Don't really know what I'm doing here either, so oh well. But we're going to be making our UI because what we have right now is, well, boring. We've got this thing. I'll bring it up just so we can do that. We'll also be getting into the actual universal platform. You see I've got a remote viewer for my phone here. The screen is black because the phone, this guy, you see that? Yeah, so this guy is totally off right now, but we'll get to that in a sec, and I'll show you guys how to deploy to, if you have a Windows phone, there are some configuration changes you need to make in order to make that deployment work. It won't work out of the box. So we're going to explore that, and then we're also going to play with getting it onto our PC and getting it onto our phone and making sure the UI looks good. Because right now, it looks like empty stuff. Here it is. Isn't this beautiful? It's pretty beautiful. I think this can ship, but I don't think people would be too happy with this. So obviously we can resize this. It's just a normal Windows app, so you can do whatever we want. It doesn't really change yet. I don't know if it will. One thing I do want to do, I think the big thing we're going to do is we're going to add a header here that's going to have like the app name, and then I'm thinking probably either an app bar at the bottom that you can pull up and display like about or something, or we're going to do some sort of hamburger menu on the left side, and then you can pop that open and there will be like add emoticon. It's gonna have the app name, an about page. You can get back to here, maybe like a history thing so you can view your history. Those will come later, but ideally I'd like to make the UI in a way that it's consistent between versions so people don't have to relearn things. And then we can work on adding new features instead of changing everything. So I think that's what we're gonna do. And so there's been a package actually that I really wanted to play with, and I think it's on NuGet. And hopefully this one goes smoother than the last one. But if we browse, there's the Universal Windows Platform Toolkit. I think that's what it's called. Helper functions, custom controls, and core stuff. I'm gonna just pop this open. And I think that's it. Yes, this is it. And I totally screwed everything up because it opened over my broadcast. Whoops. Right, so that's what we want. We'll go back here. Universal Windows. What's the difference between the UI? Oh, so they separated everything out, it looks like. I'm gonna pull this over to a new window. There it is. So this is the Universal Windows Platform Community Toolkit, and it has a bunch of fun stuff. It has things for displaying toast animations, those things you see down in the bottom right of your screen, right where my picture is. So when you see those, this lets you generate those, which is handy. It's got some stuff for file storage. I don't know exactly what that is. What I'm interested in personally is, where is it? Hamburger menu and the adaptive grid view might be interesting, but then the headered text block, I want that. And so this headered text block is going to be what we're going to use to do that thingy that we need to do. Yeah, I'm struggling with words today. That's fine. We can carry on. Why are these all separate? I'm just going to install this one and we'll see what we get. And if it's wrong, then we can do something else. So you saw it was installing a few other things. Looks like we're getting NuGet along with that, which is good actually, because I was gonna add that anyway. I'm gonna use a JSON flat file to kind of handle the initial emoticons that ship with the app. So there's gonna be a specific package that's gonna ship with the app, and that will just be loaded the first time you start the app, and then it won't be touched after that, but it will have the name and everything pre-configured, and I can add new ones to that and it will just automatically insert them. What is this guy doing? I apparently froze Visual Studio. Woo! Okay. This is getting less amusing. I think this is gonna happen every time I try to do something with anything, really. Is it dead? I think it might be dead. And if this keeps on, I'm gonna have to come up with like a compilation video or something of all the times Visual Studio crashes. No? There it goes. Okay. Let's start it again. This is going swimmingly, isn't it? It's been 7 minutes. We haven't done anything. Woo! Alright. Let's wait while that starts. Is there anything else we can use from this? So this package has a ton of really fun things in it. It's the reason I was interested in it is because it adds a lot of the easy ways to do things. But I'm just going to read this quick because I didn't read it beforehand. Okay, so the thing I just installed is probably not what we wanted. Colors, conversion tool, internet connection detection, storage file handling, a stream helper class. We're going to want the animations, and controls, I think. And I think we can leave everything else the way it was. Right. So I guess since we're here, we can talk about what the heck this thing is. So I talked about partial classes before in video 1 of this series, I'm pretty sure. And so what the XAML is generating is that second partial class. This is specifically for the app, but this is what is generated from the app XAML. There's a bunch of extra stuff in here. Like this code, you'll see this a lot. This catches any unhandled exception, as assuming you're in debug mode and you haven't disabled this thing, which I think is a property somewhere. But it will catch this one will catch like binding failures. So if you bind to something that doesn't exist, you'll actually see that, which normally you wouldn't. It just won't show up, which is handy. This thing is going to show you every error, and it's going to be really annoying because it's not going to show you the code. It's not going to jump immediately to the code that broke. It's going to jump to this guy, and then you're going to have to figure that out. And part of that issue is because you're in like XAML. We may even get to this, but you're in XAML, so it doesn't necessarily show up. So, toolkit. Okay, so it did install, it just broke everything. Maybe it just, I don't know, I'm not going to guess. Visual Studio does its own thing. And for the most part, I'll just let it. So what's this called? The Microsoft toolkit.universal Windows platform. So we want animations, and there it goes. Cool. Yes. Awesome. And controls. So we may not get to the animations this time, but the animations add things like blurring out things or fading things or anything else. It adds a bunch of basic animations. So if you need to animate something, it gives you a tool to do that without having to like storyboard and write your own thing, which we'll probably get into. Will we? Nah, we'll see. I don't know if we're gonna hit that yet, but anyway, moving on. We've got our basic app. It looks super fancy. I'm gonna shrink this down because we don't really need that right now. Emotes. Okay, just figuring out where we were. It's been about a week, so catching back up with everything. So we've got this. First things first, let's make this actually adhere to proper styling. I think that's probably a good idea. So let's do a theme resource on the, it used to be called the accent color, and now they switched it to system accent color. One way to find out. There was an easier way to find out. I could have just looked at the example, but oh well, we'll start the app anyway. I'll probably do that a lot because I actually like to when I'm developing UI, I do a lot of switching between this and Visual Studio and just kind of test something, see if it works. If it doesn't, then switch back. If it does, then I move on, and I just switch back and forth over and over. Okay, so it did work. So my Windows theme is blue. You can tell blue borders. So what the system accent color is doing is it's pulling that. So if I change my accent color, it will change. And we get this. It's still going to red here because we haven't overridden anything else. But the cool thing is we actually have a accent color that's being used here, which means we can override the rest of this stuff. So these are the reds that you were seeing. Disabled, pressed, pointer over. I think there's already resource button, pointer over background, theme brush. I think we already overrode these in the last video. I'm going back to them because I kind of am curious how this will look. So effectively all this is going to do is it's going to create a button that's going to have a default theme that's going to look like normal. Like it's going to be colored as the accent color instead of like white or black or some of those other boring colors. It's really nice that IntelliSense actually gives you a list of these resources. It didn't used to, and so you just had to like look them up or guess, which neither of those are fun. So let's continue. Try this again, see what this looks like. So we've got those. I don't like that. That kind of looks awful, is the word I think I'm going for. Yeah, I don't particularly like that. Let's actually try something quick. This is automatically defaulting to light. I think I have my computer set to choose dark. So if I delete that, does it automatically default to the dark theme? So it should look different. We should get, I don't think we'll get a white background because I think that's hard-coded. Oh, we do. Okay. So we get a black background because we switched to a dark theme. And now these buttons look slightly less awful. Until you do that, then they're unreadable. So those are going to need, that's going to need to be totally customized. So that's going to be our next step. So to do that, let's do a, oh shoot, how do I do this? Application.resources dot resource dictionary. So I'm kind of guessing at this because it's been a while. I think we may have an example we can pull from. Nope. Okay. So what a resource thing is it's going to expose those theme resources we were seeing. That's where this is coming from. So how do I create one that's attached to the theme? You know what, let's not even worry about that. Let's just default this to be requested theme. We'll request the light theme again, and we'll just code for the light theme, and then we can go back and add support for the dark theme afterwards. So it'll always default to white, and then we can make that look nice and then fix it. So how do we want to do this? We've got a resource dictionary. Let's stick some things in there. I don't know what it's called. Solid color brush. There we go. X key. And we want to call this the something. The button pointer over brush. And I'm actually going to stick Emotible button pointer in front of everything, so Emotible is in front of all of them, just so that I know it's for my app and it doesn't conflict with any of the defaults, because my naming seems very similar to theirs. I think that makes sense. It may not be useful, but it makes sense, I think. If not, well, too bad. What's a good color? That's a great question. Can I not use you? Can you guys see that? Yeah, you can. Okay, good. So we've got a color picker. None of this is what I want. Okay, that's handy. Dark gray. We'll go with dark gray. Why not? Sure. So we've got that. We want to stick it on this guy and the pointer over. There we go. Emotible button pointer brush now overrides that thing. And if we go here, we should see magic. Yes, so we get dark. Very dark. Okay, I guess that works. One other thing I want to do is I want to take this system accent color and use that when you mouse over that. I think that'll look good. I hope that'll look good. And another thing I want to do is let's spread these guys out. So I'm going to add a margin. How does this work? So if I do 0 and 6, that should work. So there's a bunch of ways you can specify margins. The way it works is it goes left, up, right, bottom, which is confusing because I don't know any other coordinate system or any other system that does it like that. I think Android might. I'd have to look, but if you only specify 2, it does horizontal padding on both sides, so they're both equal on both sides. In this case, there's zero padding on left and right, and then there's 6 pixels, device pixels, on top and bottom. So yeah, that will, since they're added together, that will mean there will be 12 between both of them. And then what I can do is that one's already 12, so I can reduce this down to 6, and 6 plus 6, 12. So it should be even. So it should look like the top element is in the same spot as it was. There should just be 12 additional pixels between the second element and this one. And hopefully that spreads them out a little bit and we can kind of distinguish them more. Right. How's this look? Cool. And if we hover, we can see there's a little blue border. That's kind of almost indistinguishable, but it's still there. Yeah, it's a little bit too dark, I think. Let's jump back to our here. We can lighten this up to like medium gray. They like exactly medium gray. And then we can also have what's it called? Come on, there we go. Pressed. It is called pressed. Emotible button pressed is going to be even darker. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So a bunch of threes. Why not? Alright. So we've got this, we've got that. We need to bind this guy in here. Pressed, button pressed, brush. And then this thing, when it's pressed, what do we want the accent, the outside to be? Do you want to do anything fancy, or do we want to just... I think we can just... We'll do the accent color again, because that seems like a good idea. Question mark? Period? I don't know. Okay, so we've got that. That's kind of good. That looks alright. So you click it, it gets darker. Kind of know you clicked it. Cool. So we can copy things. They look better than they did. They look kind of gross last time. And now they've kind of got some distinguishing features. There's a padding between them. So let's actually bring in those controls we brought in from wherever. No? Okay. So I just opened a toolbox, which I hope works. It may not. So the toolbox has a collection of every XAML element that you can put into your scene. And you can just click and drag these things in. So if I want a button, I can just drop a button there. It doesn't like that because that's not a valid place to put it, but you can just click and drag those elements. It exposes my current elements, like the ones that I've created in my app that are completely unique to that. It exposes those. What do we want? It's not displaying those things. I think we're going to want to go back to blend, because I think blend works better for this. I've never used the Universal Windows Platform toolkit before. I did use like the old Silverlight one way back in like Windows Phone 7, which is 5 years ago now. Jeez. So did use that one, and that was pretty cool. It made things way easier. It was frankly more needed back then than it is now, because now you've got the toolkit's better than it was. It's still not as good as I'd like it to be, but it's getting better, and it's gotten much better. I think we may want to take a tour off to how to do this, the tutorial. Controls. We want not a blade. That would be cool, but we don't want a blade. We want, let's just start with a hamburger menu. That should be easy, right? New get packages, getting started. Getting started seems like a good place to start. Granted, we got into trouble the last time we started at getting started, but what can go wrong? The answer? Everything. So we need to add the namespace. Done. And we need to do the thing. Here's this thing. Okay, so it creates a frame, it looks like. Oh, interesting. I think we're going to ignore this for now. So this is going to expect a bunch of bindings and stuff, and I don't want to do that right now. We'll get to that, but let's get the app working, because I don't want to deal with that right now. And yes, that is as lazy as it sounds. Sample code, sample page. What does this guy look like? Oh, literally. Oh, really? A header text block. That's not what we want. I was looking at this earlier, and it had a fancy thing. Where is it? It had a headered text box. Not a text box. This is the header text box. It had a headered panel where the header would like disappear. That wasn't the word I was looking for. It will fade out or whatever as you keep adding to it. Or as you scroll up, it fades out. It does a cool little animation thing. Apparently, that's not here. What am I missing? Oh, this was supposed to go smoothly. Incremental loading collection. No. Fade. Fade header. Maybe this is what I want. Yes. Huzzah! Success. We haven't failed everything. Okay. So I believe this is going to require some other fun stuff. This is the header. It starts with 100% opacity, but will fade to 0 as you scroll up. So cool. My header grid. So let's start with that. Does this have a header? Items control dot. No, it does not. What is it called? No, not a list. We want list view. So list view is similar to an items control, except it has items control is like the base level of collections, of displaying a collection of things. It's kind of where you start, and then I just kind of add what I need because So we've got our list view header. Somebody's cruising outside, or just has a really loud bike. Anyway, we need this thing. I'm just going to copy it verbatim because that's what I do. We don't need any of this. Why is it brush white? And this guy can be white as well. And brush blue. And this can be a theme resource that is our accent color. Control back. Oh, right. This is where I get confused. These are all the accent colors. Pretty sure I want the background. Yep, that was correct. Cool. So we've got this thing. Where was it? So we're here. Got that. So we can just add this. That's kind of cool. It's gonna totally get lost here. So we add references to both of those. We needed those namespaces weren't there. And so this is going to extend our list view with the fade header behavior, which we're not going to see because we only have 2 elements. So to see it work, let's go into our view model, the list, and do for from 0. Whoa. What am I doing? Oh, geez. Screwed up twice, too. It's less than 10. We're going to add 20 elements. Because 10 times 2, 20. Got it. And just to keep ourselves sane, we're going to do that. And that. Cool. So this should work. We should get 20 things in our list now, instead of just the normal 2. And we do. So now we can scroll down. You see we get a scroll bar. Since we have that list, or since we have those margins, the scroll bar doesn't align with the side of the view. We'll need to fix that. But if we scroll down, the header goes away, which also doesn't extend up to the top of the page because, again, margins. And you'll see because we changed the list view, we now get this select background thing, which not totally sure I like that, but I think we can turn that off. We'll figure out how to do that, or not. So there's all of that. We get this guy. You noticed our controls did not stretch all the way around, or all the way across. I'm going to change the horizontal content alignment to stretch. So it should stretch across. I could be wrong there. It may not. The list views and stuff are a little bit weird because there's nesting that kind of goes on behind the scenes. Right, which is what's happening here. So what we need to do is we've got this header that we added. We also need a list view dot items panel. And so this items panel is what actually stores. It's where everything is resting inside of here. Not the header, I don't think, but all of the items that we're displaying are inside of this. And so we want this to be a stacked panel, which is going to be a vertical or horizontal list. I'm going to choose vertical. And we don't need to fill it with anything. It's going to fill it automatically. It just needs some template to put it in. A lot of people, like in the past, I've used like a wrap grid, which we might use here, which is just a grid that automatically just places elements and it just wraps automatically. So we might try that, see where that goes. I don't know if we will or not, but that's an option. And so what we need to do is do a horizontal content alignment. No. We need to stretch that. I believe that should work. And if not, stretch that. No? Okay. I'm just guessing in the dark at this point. Let's not do that. That's a bad idea. Alright. How's this look? Looks alright. Our header still disappears. That's good. I like that. And so, are there either blur? No. Yeah, fade header behavior. We're gonna keep that. That's the only one that I was seeing if there were other things supported there. Looks like that's the only one for what we're doing here. Next, I think we can delete that. I'm trying to think how we want this to look. Oh, we can definitely get rid of that. Let's do Emotible. How's that? Let's find out. I'm kind of trying to get it down, shrunk down so it looks similar at least. Eventually it's going to be the same size as our emoticons. And I think it will just kind of appear like it's one of the elements, but it will kind of fade out. And you can kind of see it goes away. And it kind of fades in, which is good. So it's doing what we want, but it looks clean, which is also good. Let's actually see what this looks like on a phone. Now projection, yes. So if I pull this guy up, oops, if I hide that, do that, 1 sec, there we go. Okay, so if I pull this up, we've got a phone. Make it nice and big. This is the Lumia 650, I think? Yes, Lumia 650, which is it's a higher end budget phone, pretty nice. If you're into Windows phones, if you're not, then probably not worth your time. But I don't know, for how cheap it was, it's a pretty nice device. Anyway, moving on. The point of this isn't to review a phone or to push my own personal preferences. But I didn't mean to do that. What we need to do is stop that, switch that to device, and run it. Now, this is going to fail because we are building for the wrong platform. We're building for x86. Phones run on ARM processors, which are not x86 processors. So this isn't going to work. We're going to get a deployment error. We read down here. This deployment error. No, I don't want to continue. Unable to deploy an x86 package to an ARM device. To fix that, you open up this guy. This is the wrong thing. Open up the solution and open the configuration manager. And here you can change this to ARM. This is the hard way to do it because there's also an option up here, up in the top. But if I do this, it's going to reload everything. It's going to have to rebuild the project, but it's going to work on an ARM processor. It's going to work on this guy. Can you see that? Yeah. So it's going to work on that. It's not recognized or it's not accessible. So it's having trouble finding all of our own commands again, because again, there is no binary and it's looking in the binary to find these things. So these should disappear once we build. If it doesn't, then I don't know what's wrong. So I'm gonna start the deployment, open this guy up, and we can just kind of wait in anticipation. So it's deploying, it's copying the files over to my phone. You can see we've already gotten further than we had. And so it should just pop up on the device, and then the device should just automatically open the app. And then the app should start up. We're still debugging it, so we can still put breakpoints, do whatever we want. It more or less it works exactly like a normal app. It's just running on a phone. And actually, I don't even need to, oops, sorry about that. I don't even need to hold this thing. You can actually interact with everything directly from this Project My Screen app. So I can wait for this to open because it just launched. We'll get this starting up soon. Or not. So it might take a bit because it is creating the database, and also it's in debug mode, which normally takes a while. But we get our app, and it looks like this. And so I can just, I'm not touching the phone right now. I'm not touching it. But we can move this from here, and it looks and plays like a normal phone. And so this is just a way to remotely interact with your phone from your computer. So if you're developing, or in my case, presenting, I don't need to show you my phone. So it makes things easier. What else? Yeah, I guess it works. Cool. So that's how you get your app over to Universal, over onto Windows Phone. Windows Mobile. It's Windows Mobile now. I don't know why they changed it and then changed it and then changed it back. But it's Windows. It went from Windows Mobile with Windows Mobile 6 to Windows Phone 7 to Windows Phone 8 and 8.1 to Windows Mobile again. I don't know why. Just did. That's a thing that happened. But it works. We can deploy to that thing. I'm going to switch this back to x86. And it's going to reload everything, switch it back to work on the local machine. There's also a simulator here, which if you want to like test on a surface or a touch device, you can start that and it will work like a normal, you can simulate touches and stuff like that. I'm not going to worry about that because there's not much here. And if the touch works on the phone, it's going to work on everything else. And we don't have complex controls like multi-touch or anything like that. At least we don't have those yet. Anywho, I'm going to get rid of this because that name is not needed. And we've got the background. Okay, I think that's all we need. The only other thing I want to add is a double. We're going to store this guy. I believe we want, no, yes, we do. That guy, whoa. Okay, we want a double. And the reason we want a double is we want to have the tile height stored as a double. And this is going to be, how much do we want this to be? 96? Why did I choose 96? I believe it's divisible by 12. Yes. 12 times 9 is not 12 times 9, 12 times 8. 12 times 7 is 96. I'm going to feel silly if that's wrong. Pretty sure that's right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. If I'm wrong, oh well. Doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure it's divisible by 12. That's what matters. So, the reason we're doing that is because I don't know if the rule of 12 still applies, but in Windows Phone 7, there was this thing called the rule of 12. So all of the tiles on the start screen had 12 pixels between them. Everything had 12 pixels between it. That was just what happened. Some would have 6 in some cases when you really needed like tight stuff. But if you were separating elements, it was 12 pixels, and it was always 12 pixels. And if you did anything else, it was almost certainly wrong. And that's kind of stuck. So I kind of use that now, just in this, and if it doesn't look good, then we can switch it. But that's why I was using 12 previously too. So we've got our tile height. Important thing with this is now we don't want to go there, we want to go into our main page. And we want to set this height. Let's set the grid height equal to the static resource tile height. And that made it massive. Of course it did. I guess that makes sense. 96 would be huge. On a phone, 96 is going to be like a fourth of the screen. So let's downsize that to 64. 64. That's not a multiple of 12. Oh well. We're going to do 60. There. I was thinking multiples of 2. Anyway. Oh, go away. Anyway, there. Done. Ah. Cool. Looks better, I think. We'll get into that once I fix the other ones as well. And we do that by changing the height here. Like so. And I'm just going to separate these by line so it's a little bit easier to read. There we go. And now we have a tile height. Cool. One thing that I don't think is happening is I don't think this guy is stretching. Actually, I'm pretty sure I know they're not stretching. So I'm going to do that. Set the horizontal alignment to stretch in both of these. Oops. And the vertical alignment to stretch as well. So this will fill the area, which is what we need to happen, which may have been why it was breaking earlier, but that's necessary for this because I don't think vertically it does do that by default. And it still didn't. Well, that was weird. Okay. What did I do? Clearly I did something wrong. Horizontal, vertical alignment, stretch. I don't think that's needed, but we'll pretend like it was. Padding, nothing important in here. So let's run that again. Cool. So that worked. So we've got our buttons, they're scaling. I don't know why they're not going horizontally across. I believe there is something preventing them. Actually, we might be able to use this guy. Whoa. Okay. So this, I talked a little bit about this right when we started this project, but this is going to let us inspect the visual tree. This is how our stuff is rendering. It represents everything that's there. So you've got our scroll bars, everything. What we can do then is enable selection, and this will highlight each of the areas, and you can kind of see now how things are stretching. So we've got this, and you can see it's all the way across. Then we've got our button, which isn't, and we've got our text, which is at the very center, and I believe that's what's determining the size. So I can click on that button. We get here, that's inside of an emote tile, which is inside of our stack panel, which is inside of a scroll presenter, which is just going to be a scroll viewer. So every list item, every content control has a scroll view behind it, and that allows it to it allows it to scroll. So if you need to add scrolling, you can do that without adding a scroll viewer, which is, that is the scroll viewer. Then it goes into our list view, which is inside of our grid, which is in our main page, which is all the way up in the root. So some of this stuff is not stuff we added. This is all coming from the platform. But some of the stuff we know. The button, we know. We added that. The emote tile, we created that. That's our thing. So it looks like defined in main page. Okay, so this is, I'm gonna pin this because otherwise I'm gonna get lost, and we'll get that. Oh, it did not like that. So I need to stop breaking things. Okay, so if at first you don't succeed, close and reopen the thing. Okay, so this is our item. We've got our stack panel, which is stretched. If I select the stack panel, this guy, it's so hard to tell because it's all the wrong size. It's giving me numbers. That's not helpful. Okay, so if we select the stack panel, which is this guy, then we can go here and we'll see it is all the way across. This is the list view presenter. So something in here is causing our emote tile, this guy, to be the wrong size. So as I select things in here, it's selecting them in the app. That's why the red border is around it. So I'm just kind of looking at this to kind of visually debug things. So the emote tile is the wrong size. How do we fix that? I don't know, because I'm pretty sure we set it to stretch in both of those directions. So I'm wondering if there's something happening in this stack panel that we aren't controlling. Like, I thought there was a content, like what we have here. There's a horizontal content alignment. I thought we had that for a stack panel. Apparently that isn't an option. So I'm missing something. If I change this horizontal alignment to stretch, does that solve it? I think we already tried this, and I think it didn't work. And we know this is what's the problem because we saw the stack panel was the correct size, and then we saw the emote tile was the wrong size. So it's not an instance of the emote tile being the correct size and the button inside of it being the wrong size. This control is the wrong size, so we need to fix that. And it's still the wrong size. I've run into this issue before. And the solve was always creating that items panel and then setting the content alignment to stretch. Horizontal content alignment stretch. That's not going to work. Is it? No. No, it's not. Because nothing ever works. Alright. So, let's load this. Should work. No, it doesn't. Horizontal content alignment, that can go away. Those aren't working. Take our horizontal alignment, that didn't solve it. Our stack panel, is centered. No, that's the header. We don't care about that. This did not work either. I'm just going to delete all of this and see where we're at with everything else. See what happens there, and then we can inspect that. See if it's the same thing. I may need to go and do some offline research on this and figure out this issue. So let's open this thing again. Let's toggle selection. So everything's still stretching like it should. It's just this. Well, just that. That is wrong. And that is right. So something's going on. Something's getting lost there. But I don't know what it is. So we'll fix it next time. Moving on though, because we've spent way too much time on that, I'm actually going to change this stack panel, which may fix our issues. Let's make it a wrap grid. Now, if I can only remember how to do this, orientation, we want to change this to be horizontal. So what an orientation, or what a wrap grid is going to do is it's going to wrap the elements. It's going to be kind of like a list, but then when it runs off the end, it's going to wrap it down below to the next thing. At least when you have it as horizontal, that's what it does. If it's vertical, it does the same thing. It just goes down and then hits the bottom and wraps to the top and so forth. So we've got a wrap grid. We're oriented horizontally. And how do I do this? There is a column. Max columns or rows. So this is going to be the number of columns or rows that we have. I'm going to choose 3. Actually, I'm going to choose 2. So there should be 2 elements now on each column. Or 2 elements per row, because we're doing horizontal. So it's going to build out each row individually. Should. I haven't used this control in like a year. There we go. So we get this, and it just wraps. So it goes hello world, and you can see by the numbers I put there that it is wrapping. The only thing that it isn't doing now is stretching across. We can actually look here, and nothing is stretching. So we need to fix that. And I believe there's a way to do that. That's good. Item width equals star. No. Dang it. That would have been so easy. No. Okay, so it doesn't support that. That's too bad. Is there a way to stretch them? I'm gonna look this up because I do not know. We're using a wrap grid stretch. Oh, that looks fun. So it's just, they're writing a converter here to handle this whole thing, which I don't really want to do. That's kind of silly. Why isn't that part of the platform? You'd think that'd be standard, like I want 2 elements per row or per column, but apparently it isn't. It's kind of, that's too bad. Can vertically scroll. Is there anything else that I want to work with first before we jump into that? It doesn't look like it. So that's the next step. Unless, let's see if it can be smart and I can use the grid stuff. Wrap grid dot no. Does it support the grid stuff? No, not really. Okay. Well, I guess we're writing a converter. So, wrap grid, we need to do the width equals something that we're going to convert. And so to do that, we need to plug in, I'm just going to look at what they're doing. They're taking the width and the min width and Wait, what? Hold on. I think something's missing from this. This doesn't look right to me. Converter parameter. I think we can fix this. Horizontal stretch. I wonder if this works. Kind of curious if this works. I don't think it will. No, nothing else I've tried has, but if it does, that would be fantastic. It doesn't. Cool. Alright, back to square one. We're going to go and do all the fun stuff. So this, we need a solver that is going to take the item width. How do we want to do this? Let's set the item width equal to the maximum rows or columns divided by the width. Other way around. Let's divide the width of the element of this guy by the maximum rows or columns, and that'll be easy. We can do that. And how we do that is we can bind to the width, and then when that's changed, we can use that to adjust everything. So I think this isn't going to use the converters actually that he was talking about. We're going to come up with our own solution, and we're going to use a view model. So we're going to have our wrap grid view model. And the way this is going to work is we're going to have a public, these are going to need to be private, int number of columns. Gonna lowercase this because this is the private stuff, and that's gonna, I'm just gonna default that to 2, and the double of the width. Then we need a getter and setter for this, so we need a number of columns equals something. We're gonna return the number of columns like that, and I'm going to create one for the width as well. Width. Oh, geez. I hate how it auto formats and closes those for me. I don't want it to close them. Width. And we can spell that right. There. So those are the getters. Now we need to implement a iNotify property changed interface. Oops. What's going on? None of my hotkeys are working, so we're gonna have to do it the old-fashioned mouse click way. No. Okay. So onProperty changed is going to invoke this guy. It looks like ReSharper has already implemented it for me, which is fantastic. So there's nothing for us to do there. That's automatically done. Then all we need to do is have some setters. Ooh. So what this is going to do, we haven't done any of these in this project yet, but what the property changed interface does is it notifies the UI that your element has changed. This method is super fancy. You don't need it to look like this, but this is probably the easiest way to do it. So what this is going to do is it's going to say, if you don't provide a string here, if it's null, it's going to automatically substitute the calling member's name in there. So if you call this from like the property that just updated, it will automatically pass that property's name because that's what's calling it to this method. So if I call it from this width setter, it's automatically going to pass width as the property name. This will automatically be width. And then it's going to, if there is a property changed, if it's not null, then it's going to invoke a property changed event. And then the UI takes that and handles it and handles rendering everything. So with that, we can do if width is not equal to value. So this is only going to trigger an update if something's actually changed. So if our current width is different than the value we're trying to set it to, then we want to set it and on property changed. And we don't need to specify anything here because we're calling it from a method that needs to specify it. So this will automatically get filled in and everything should be good. So I can just copy this from here and replace these with number of columns. And now we have two properties that can be bound to our UI and they will automatically update everything. Next, we need to take this list and plug in a reference to that. I'm just gonna, well, no, we don't even need to do that. I think that's just confusing if we start adding that stuff there. So we're gonna add a new resource. It's gonna be our view models. It's called the wrap grid view model. X key is going to be our wrap grid view model. I'm just going to call it what it is, and we'll give it a name as well. Then we can take this and we want to set the number of columns or rows we want to pass that in. And so we're going to do a binding on our, what would we call it? This is going to be our source, static resource of that. And the path is going to be the number of columns. Since we set that to 2 in there, we don't need to do anything, but this will actually allow us to dynamically change this. So if we need to change it later, we can just update it and it should work. I say with a little bit of hesitation, but then we want to bind our item width to this thing. And so how this is going to work, we're going to bind and write it similarly to, first we need to set the source so it actually looks in the right place. And then we can jump out here and set the path equal to the width. Then, yeah, so it's not recognizing this because we haven't built yet. But then what we can do is add a comma and then jump down here, and we're going to bind to the width of this. And I'm going to call this path equals control width. And we didn't create this yet. I just realized that I need it now. And it's going to bind to the same thing. And so this guy is going to be special. We're not going to actually store anything. I don't think we need to, do we? No. And so the idea is this is going to be a binding in the opposite direction, if that makes any sense. It's going to send its data to this view model, so it's going to be a one-way directional binding from that control into our view model. So our view model is going to get the updates, but it's not going to read those updates as the width from wherever. So we're going to do this. And I think we can just implement a set. And I think that should work. I haven't actually done this, so we're going to see if this works. But this is just coming off the top of my head as a solution to this. So to do that, we can set the width equal to the value divided by the number of columns. And so the value is going to be the new control width we're trying to set. Every time we get a set, it's going to pass this in. And then we're going to set the item width to be that divided by the number of columns. So if your screen is 300 pixels wide and you have 2 columns, this should set the width to 150. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. And so we've got this, and then we just need to change the mode to be when the binding is created one way. I think we may need to do this 2-way. I don't think it'll work otherwise. But we can just have a getter and a setter here, I guess. It actually will make our code a little bit more efficient because we won't be resizing our control when we don't need to. So I'm going to store the width like so, and this can just return it. Get rid of that extra bracket. We'll stick I can't call it the width, I need to call it the control width, because we already have something called width. And that is going to get super confusing, and I should change it. Which I will do shortly. Right, so let's, okay, refactoring is not supported. That's unfortunate. Refactor, let's rename it. We're going to call it the item width. Oh, yes. This can be control width again because I accidentally refactored that. And you'll see it actually went through and did our property too. That's pretty cool. Did it get our main page? Yes, it did. Awesome. That's more handy than I remember. So we've got our control width. That's getting updated. It's not getting set. So we can set that equal to the value and then call this on property changed. And now if I did all of this right, which probably didn't, then this should work and we should get resizing columns. I'm going to actually, now that I think about it, stick a breakpoint in here and we can figure out what goes wrong, because it's going to go wrong and I'm kind of curious how. So we did do a 2-way binding here. And so the way that's going to work is it's going to allow both controls to send data back and forth. It's most useful in like a text box. Oh. Well, that's broken. Yeah, that could have gone better. So there's all these elements in here, and I believe they all have a width of 0. Yeah. So that didn't work. Let's set this equal to 150 to start. And just for fun, we'll set that to 300. Kind of curious if this is going to work at all now. We may need to do some more fancy stuff. Okay, it kind of works. But if I resize this, it doesn't work. Okay, so, well, that didn't work. So we can get rid of this. So what's happening is it's not firing off these events. So I think we're going to want approach 2, which is a custom control, I think. I think we could use converters. I think that might work, but then you have to write the converters and, well, let's try that. Let's see what happens. I don't really like how those converter patterns work, but let's create one and see what happens. I'm going to just keep that around that extra view model I created, because why not? We'll call it the wrap grid with converter. And so this is going to be a converter. I do not know how to make these. How do we do this? One sec. I'm gonna include that, go in here, and just drill down to that. Okay. So we got a interface, which we can then use. I can pull that out because we don't need it, and I can implement it or not. I don't know why my hotkeys don't work sometimes, but that one's broken. And we get this thing. So we need to convert this value with a parameter into a new value. And then given a value and a parameter, we need to convert it back. So we're going to convert a width and a parameter of the number of columns into the new width, the item width. And we're going to do that by taking, well, yeah, let's do, int value, oops, what do we want to call this? Let's call it, the value is going to be the width, so value as an int. You can't do that with a non-nullable type. That makes sense. We'll do the C style cast. That should be fine for this, because if it doesn't work, then our app is going to be broken anyway. So I guess if it throws an exception, that's probably all right. We can catch that anyway. That's not what I wanted to write. I'm just talking and writing things, and it's all going horribly. Okay. I'm going to take that, take it as an int, cast it to columns. Then we want to return the width divided by the columns. And it would work great if I added a division sign there. There we go. And I think that's it. One thing we do need, because those are going to throw exceptions, we need to catch a invalid cast exception. So this is going to return 0. And I'm going to stick a to do. We don't have logging right now. We don't log anything. So debugging this is going to be a pain regardless of how it happens. The app is either going to crash or not. I'm just going to make it not display anything. It's just going to have 0 as the width. So it's going to get exactly what we have now. So I'm going to stick a to do here when we get logging. Let's go back and catch this exception and log it at the very least. Handle this. And hopefully we actually do get a logging solution. That would be nice. Then let's, just for fun, implement this convert back. I don't think we're going to use this, but this now is going to be the item width. And so we're going to return the item width times the columns. So we're going to convert here by taking the total width of the element and dividing it by the columns. That gets us our item width. And so then by multiplying the item width by the columns, we should get right back to our width. And I think that should work. Only issue is it's going to be expecting this is going to be a double, because all of the widths and most of the values in WPF, UWP, all of those are doubles. So this is going to automatically cast this to a double. So we're going to be working with doubles. We're not going to be working with ints. So just to be explicit with that, we'll return 0.0. Then, let's see if I can remember what they were doing. Well, first, let's delete that. We don't need it. And then here, I can set this to 2. And we're no longer going to be able to automatically use our... We're no longer going to be able to automatically change the number of items we have. That's not a thing we're going to be able to do anymore. But that's fine, I think. I don't think we may need that later, but we can do data binding still. We can still use that view model. I'm just not going to use it now. We need Emotible dot converter. So we're adding a namespace here to our XML. Grab the view models, and that's not right. Grab the converter, and we'll give it a key of wrap grid with converter. And then we want to use this thing that we got, which I'm going to look here because we're kind of going based on this. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Holy. Bind mid width like this. Okay. Got it. This isn't going to work, I can guarantee. There we go. So that was all kinds of wrong. But that, and we can, whoa. Ow, dang it. Okay. My mouse is too sensitive. I can't draw straight lines. We're going to delete that. That should be good now. It's looking for a static resource of, oops, not the same thing, not wrap grid with converter. I believe that's what we called it. Type static oh, they have an extra S there. So we're more or less verbatim using this thing. So I'm going to copy that, and for future sake, stick a comment in here. Like that, so that we know where that came from. And then the only other thing we need to plug in is going to be this guy. NB of object that you want in one line. Which I believe is just 2. And I'm hard coding this just to make sure it works. Eventually we can actually bind to this thing, but we'll get to that later and when we make our code good, then we can well, make our code good. So let's start this, see if this works. What we should see is we should see 2 columns, and each column should take up half of our page. Assuming I did it right. And we're back to where we started. Oh, this was a big waste of time. My bad. Why is that, though? So the min width, I'm curious what it's calculating. Let's look that up. So if I go here, we're going to hit this converter here. I'm going to drop one down here. And we'll run it again. We should hit this 20-ish times. We should hit it, no, we should hit it once. Or not at all. This is interesting. Huh. Wonder what's going on. Pretty sure I wrote that right. And then I'm just gonna poke this thing until I can get it to work. Okay. So that converter isn't getting called. So that's good and bad news. It means our code doesn't work, but it means it doesn't work in a way that our code isn't broken necessarily. So our converter may still work, which is good or bad. Now we've got to find some other issue. So this is looking at itself. I'm guessing this was actually important. Yeah, let's see. So min width equals binding width. Yeah, I thought that was wrong. I don't think this was checked. So the objects are automatically the size. Well, that's min height, vertical, orientation, width. I feel like I'm missing something. But I don't appear to be. Item width would help if I had stayed up to date with all of the Universal Windows platform stuff, but a little bit behind, and it's making this a little bit slower than normal. So I'm gonna poke at this. Hopefully we'll get it solved. Oh, that was wrong. Okay, don't do that. Hopefully we'll get this solved though, and then we can come back and work on this in the morning. Well, tomorrow, not in the morning. I have work, but so how is this working though? They're trying to set the width of the wrap grid. I don't think this doesn't. Unless this is Windows like WPF? No? So I'm thinking there's something wrong going on here because we're trying to set the width of the wrap grid. That doesn't seem right to me because we're trying to get the item width and make sure that is something just disconnected. Oh, got it. Welcome back. Okay. One of my devices is going crazy. I'm gonna unplug that. My phone was restarting. I guess that's a thing that it does by itself now. Anyway, this is wrong. I don't think this is right. That doesn't make much sense. This makes a little bit more sense. Yeah, I think that's what we need. We need to use this guy instead of this. So instead of self, we're going to use the templated parent. I think that makes more sense. We can change this. Still a little bit confused about how it's actually getting the columns, but I'm kind of curious. We need to get our elements back first. And specifically, we need our converter to be hit. Because it's not even getting called right now, and that doesn't really make much sense to me. I would expect this to be called unless it's throwing an exception. If it's throwing an exception, we would never know. Maybe that's what's happening. Let me check. Ha! That is what's happening. So we need to fix this. Should have checked this earlier. Should have added login. Unable to cast object of type item presenter. Well, duh. Okay. So it can't cast its thing to its thing. We can fix this. So we're binding this. Binding the min width. Does this make sense? No. No, it does not. Relative source. Let me think. Does that make sense? I think that does. So we're binding it to itself, and we're saying, take your width, pass that in to our converter, convert that with this parameter to the item width. That makes sense in my head. I guess we can find out. And if it doesn't work, I think I'll probably dig into this a little bit on my spare time, figure that out. But first, exception. Cannot convert type string. Oh, okay. Can't convert not a number to that. That, I think, is the issue of width isn't necessarily specified initially. But this parameter is getting passed in as a string, which is really annoying. Why is it doing that? I guess we can parse it. Int 32 parse parameter. We'll take it as a string. Cool. So now that should work. We'll have to take this guy and copy him down here just to make sure both of those work still. Launch this. This issue is kind of annoying. Just totally stopped us. All I wanted was columns. That's all I wanted. Right. Not a number divided by 2 is not a number. Well, that's surprising. Okay. Does it get called again if I resize it? Doesn't appear to be. Well, hold on. Where's our... Let's find our wrap grid and figure out how big that guy is. So there's the grid. There's how big it is. And if we change it, those bindings should re-trigger our converter. And so that should run and update these. But that's not happening. So I'm wondering if I bind to the actual width, which is actually going to, I believe this always returns value. So normally the width is kind of not set until it is, but the actual width is going to actually calculate it. Width 0, columns 2, continue. Okay, that got rid of everything. Cool. So now we need to do one more thing, I think. Or I could just be jumping into a giant hole of mistakes. But let's make sure. Mode two-way. I think this is wrong. I'm pretty sure you shouldn't do this. I'm gonna do it because that's just what I do. But I don't think we should do this. I think this is bad. I think we're gonna eventually have to just create our own. We're gonna have to create our own control. I think that's the solution here. Because I'm kind of sick of dealing with this. And I think that'll be fairly easy. We just need to extend the wrap grid and then just assign that. Yeah, I think that's the next step. I don't think we're going to use this converter because binding to that width is a problem because it's all dynamically assigned, so it's not getting set yet. Unless I'm missing something, but yeah, I'll look into this on my own time, and then I'll do another one of these tomorrow, and we can fix this and get everything working. We'll probably get into some storyboarding and some animations, and do some more of that stuff. But for now, I think that's it for this stream. So thanks for watching if you watched, or there'll be a video on demand later. So I may edit it, I probably won't. But that'll be up on the channel, so you can check that out. And you can look back at the old playlist of the other videos for this app, or check it out on GitHub. The entire source is open source, so check it out, fork it, do something cool. I don't know, publish your own app, make it your own, do something cool. I said that already. Yeah. So that's it for now. So thanks for watching. See you guys.